I apologize. I was actually meeting with a relatively large delegation from Turkey, and I was in transit as Senator Coons was probably talking about the issue I want to raise. And it is about food security. Earlier in the week, we were briefed by the Executive Director of the UN World Food Program, David Beasley, and it sounds pretty grim. So, again, I apologize if we're plowing through ground you've already covered, but what is the administration doing? What priority has it put this at in terms of not only opening up the ports, but the silos are full, winter wheat's going to have to be harvested, the fertilizer, what specifically is being done, and other than just talking about to your U.S. partners, I mean, are we working to develop a neutral flotilla to get into the Black Sea and feed the world? And whoever's best capable of answering it.
Thank you, Senator, for that very important question. And I will take what we are doing right now and turn it over to my colleague about what potential scenarios and opening up, as you said, a flotilla, ports, what other options are to get the grain out, to get the agricultural commodities out. Right now, we know the implications are far-reaching globally, and what we are doing internally is making sure that the supply lines for feeding the internally displaced persons and Ukrainians still within Ukraine's borders are open, and that they get essential foodstuffs, both with the WFP as well as with the
that's good, but I'm talking about between Russia and Ukraine, what I'm hearing, 30% of world grains. That's a massive amount, and Africa and host nations are at risk of starvation. What are we doing to free that up? I would think making that a very high priority item to both President Zelensky and Putin, that this must be done, and we're going to engineer a way to get it done sooner rather than later. I mean, there's not many days to spare here. We have to do this.
You're absolutely right, Senator. And the challenge is not just the logistics and the exports, but it's actually getting the planting season back on track and the inputs in the ground so that the supply, this isn't a one-off just moving what's in storage. It's making sure that the spring harvest proceeds and the summer harvest and fall harvest proceeds and the planting seasons continue. Supply chains are disrupted. Inputs are hard to get in and moved around the country. And frankly, in those areas where the Ukrainians have retaken land, we have to go in with our colleagues and demine that farming space so that they can actually plant safely. We are focused on that. And so I would take the question and put it in two parts. What are we doing to ensure growth and production continues safely? And then there's a logistic issue of how we get it out once we're able to safely plant, grow, harvest, and then export.
Okay, well, again, I'm told the silos are full. So that's kind of step one. Let's empty those silos, okay? And then, harvest the wheat. But again, I would say the first step is to make this a really big issue publicly. Be raising it. I don't hear everything the administration says, but I have not heard the administration really raise this and put this out as a top priority.
Senator Johnson, I want to assure you the administration feels your sense of urgency. The United States has the presidency of the UN Security Council this month of May, and next week, Secretary Blinken will be spending 2 days in New York, one for a ministerial on food security and the other for a UN Security Council conversation on this. So the United States is using its presidency of the UNSC this month to put a spotlight on the issue and galvanize international support around this. To the specific logistics issue, which you're absolutely right on, we have to date been sending that Ukrainian grain out through the port of Constanta. And the concern is whether we can continue to do that because there may be other grain shipments from Serbia and Hungary coming into that port. So there's a question about whether we can increase the capacity there. Are there other ports on the Black Sea like Varna that we can use? The port of Odessa is part of the conversation. So there we are very actively and urgently focused on this mission. So I want to assure you that, yes, we share your concern and we are trying to put a spotlight on it.
I would just do it more publicly. Final question. Do you have any initial estimates of the cost of rebuilding? We're talking about a $40 billion aid package right now. I think the American public, I think the world needs to understand the economic devastation. I'm assuming the way it gets paid for is eventually on some reasonable royalty on oil and gas. Russia gets less than what they hope for. The people who use oil and gas will, obviously be picking up the tab. But any idea, just make people aware of how much this is going to cost to rebuild Ukraine?
My crystal ball is cloudy because we don't know when the war ends.
I understand, but what's the devastation so far? I mean, again, the human toll is incalculable.
Yeah, I just...
We're talking hundreds of billions at least, right?
I have no idea. What I do know is there's one person on this planet who can end this war today, and that's Vladimir Putin.
Thank you.
And I know we all call on him to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Cardin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me thank all of our witnesses for their incredible service during this extremely difficult time. I must tell you, wherever I go, people want to know what they can do to help. We have the energy of our country and the global community to make sure that we carry out